The galaxy was silent. Once, it had been alive with the hum of starships, the chatter of countless civilizations, and the glow of thriving worlds. Now, it was a graveyard. Planets orbited cold, dead stars, their surfaces scarred by ancient wars. The remnants of a once great empire lay scattered across the void, their technology rusted and forgotten. But amidst the silence, something stirred. A small human exploration vessel, the Eclipse, drifted through the ruins. Its crew of 5 had been sent to investigate the mysterious signals emanating from this long-dead galaxy. The mission was simple: gather data, avoid danger, and return home. But as the Eclipse approached the source of the signals, the crew began to feel an unease they couldn't shake. On the bridge, the captain, a seasoned explorer with a sharp mind and steady hands, studied the readings. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. "The signals are coming from a planet that shouldn't exist. According to our maps, this entire system was wiped out millennia ago." The science officer, a young woman with a knack for solving puzzles, adjusted her console. "The planet's atmosphere is stable, and there are signs of artificial structures. But the energy signatures, they're unlike anything we've seen before." The pilot, a man with a calm demeanor and quick reflexes, glanced at the captain. "Should we land? It could be a trap." The captain hesitated. The mission was clear: avoid unnecessary risks. But the curiosity burning in his chest was hard to ignore. "We'll proceed with caution. Prepare the landing team." As the Eclipse descended through the planet's thin atmosphere, the crew saw the ruins of a once great city. Towering spires of blackened metal reached toward the sky, their surfaces etched with strange symbols. The ground was littered with the remnants of ancient machines, their purpose long forgotten. The landing team, consisting of the captain, the science officer, and the engineer, stepped onto the surface. The air was cold and still, and the silence was oppressive. As they moved deeper into the city, they found a massive structure at its center. It was a pyramid, its surface covered in the same strange symbols they had seen on the spires. The science officer ran her hand over the symbols. "These aren't just decorations. They're a language. If I can decipher them, we might learn what happened here." The engineer, a practical man with a talent for fixing things, scanned the structure. "There's a power source inside. It's faint, but it's there. Whatever this place is, it's not completely dead." The captain nodded. "Let's find a way in. But stay alert. We don't know what we're dealing with." As they entered the pyramid, the air grew colder, and the silence was broken by a faint hum. The walls glowed with a soft, blue light, and the symbols seemed to pulse with energy. At the center of the structure, they found a chamber filled with strange machinery. In the middle of the room was a pedestal, and on it rested a single, glowing crystal. The science officer approached the crystal cautiously. This is the source of the signals. It's some kind of recording device." The captain stepped forward. "Can you activate it?" She nodded and placed her hand on the crystal. The room was suddenly filled with light, and a holographic image appeared before them. It was a figure, tall and alien, with eyes that seemed to pierce through time itself. The figure spoke, its voice echoing in the minds of the crew. "To those who come after us, hear our warning. We were the guardians of this galaxy, protectors of the weak and the innocent. But we were betrayed by those we trusted, and our empire fell. Do not make the same mistake. Never stop defending those who cannot defend themselves. For if you do, this will be your fate." The image faded, and the crystal dimmed. The crew stood in silence, the weight of the message settling over them. The captain turned to his team. "We need to take this back to Earth. The galaxy needs to know what happened here." As they left the pyramid, the crew couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The dead galaxy had given them a warning, but it was clear that the danger was far from over. The crew of the Eclipse returned to their ship, the weight of the alien warning heavy on their minds. The glowing crystal, now safely stored in a containment unit, pulsed faintly, as if alive. The captain sat in his chair on the bridge, staring at the holographic replay of the alien's message. The words echoed in his head, "Never stop defending those who cannot defend themselves." The science officer worked tirelessly, analyzing the crystal and the symbols from the pyramid. "This technology is ancient," she said, her voice tinged with awe. "But it's also incredibly advanced. The crystal isn't just a recording device, it's a data bank. It contains information about the civilization that built it, their history, their wars, and their downfall." The engineer leaned over her shoulder, studying the readings. "If we can decode this, we might learn what destroyed them. And more importantly, how to avoid the same fate." The captain nodded. "Do it. But be careful. We don't know what else is in there." As the science officer worked, the pilot kept a close watch on the sensors. The dead galaxy was unnervingly quiet, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. "Captain," he said suddenly, "I'm picking up something on the edge of the system. It's faint, but it's moving." The captain straightened. "Show me." The pilot brought up the sensor data on the main screen. A small blip appeared, drifting slowly toward their position. It wasn't a natural object, its trajectory was too deliberate. "Could it be another ship?" the engineer asked. "Maybe," the captain replied. "But if it is, it's not one of ours. Let's not take any chances. Prepare for evasive maneuvers if needed." The crew tensed as the object drew closer. Minutes felt like hours as they waited, their eyes glued to the screen. Then, without warning, the object vanished from the sensors. "Where did it go?" the science officer asked, her voice tight with tension. Before anyone could answer, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared as the lights flickered. The engineer rushed to the control panel. "We've been hit. Something's latched onto the hull." The captain gripped the armrests of his chair. "Get us out of here. Now." The pilot's hands flew across the controls, but the ship didn't respond. "Engines are offline. We're dead in the water." The science officer pulled up the external cameras. What they saw sent a chill through the crew. A sleek, black craft had attached itself to the Eclipse, its surface covered in the same strange symbols they had seen on the pyramid. "It's them," the captain whispered. "The ones who destroyed this galaxy." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They were stranded in a dead galaxy, facing an unknown enemy. But the aliens' warning echoed in their minds, "Never stop defending the weak." The captain stood, his voice firm. "We're not going down without a fight. Engineer, get the engines back online. Science officer, keep working on that crystal. Pilot, prepare for anything. If they want a fight, they'll get one." As the crew scrambled to their tasks, the black craft began to hum with energy. The battle for survival had begun. The Eclipse shuddered again as the black craft's hum grew louder, resonating through the ship's hull. The crew worked frantically, their movements sharp and precise despite the fear gnawing at them. The engineer cursed under his breath as he rerouted power to the engines. "Whatever's attached to us is draining our systems. I'm trying to bypass it, but it's like fighting a shadow." The science officer, still hunched over the crystal, suddenly gasped. "Captain, I've found something. The crystal, it's not just a data bank. It's a key. It can activate defenses in this system. The ancient civilization left behind weapons, hidden in the ruins. If we can get to them, we might stand a chance." The captain's eyes narrowed. "Can you activate them from here?" She shook her head. "No. We need to take the crystal to the central control hub. It's on the planet's surface, near the pyramid." The captain clenched his fists. Then that's where we're going. Engineer, how long until we can move? The engineer wiped sweat from his brow. 2 minutes. Maybe less. But if they're draining our power, we won't have long once we're free. The pilot interrupted, his voice tense. Captain, the black craft, it's doing something. The energy readings are spiking. On the screen, the black craft's surface began to glow, the symbols etched into its hull pulsing with a sinister light. A low, resonant tone filled the eclipse, vibrating through the crew's bones. They're trying to breach the hull, the engineer shouted. The captain made a split-second decision. Pilot, as soon as we have power, get us to the planet. Science officer, grab the crystal. Engineer, prepare for a rough landing. We're going down there, and we're taking the fight to them. The crew moved quickly, their training overriding their fear. The science officer secured the crystal in a portable containment unit, while the engineer rerouted the last of the ship's power to the thrusters. The pilot's hands hovered over the controls, ready to move. Engines online, the engineer yelled. Go, the captain ordered. The Eclipse lurched forward, breaking free of the black craft's grip. The alien ship hesitated for a moment, then began to pursue. The pilot guided the ship through the planet's atmosphere, the hull groaning under the strain. Behind them, the black craft followed, its glow intensifying. They're gaining on us, the science officer warned. Hold on, the pilot shouted as he angled the ship toward the ruins. The Eclipse skimmed the surface, kicking up clouds of dust and debris. With a final, bone-rattling impact, the ship came to a halt near the pyramid. Everyone out, the captain commanded. We need to reach the control hub before they catch up. The crew scrambled out of the ship, the crystal in tow. The black craft hovered above, its glow casting eerie shadows over the ruins. As they ran toward the pyramid, the ground beneath them began to tremble. What now? The engineer muttered. From the shadows of the ruins, figures emerged. They were humanoid, but their forms were twisted and mechanical, their eyes glowing with the same sinister light as the black craft. The ancient guardians of the galaxy, corrupted and turned into weapons. The captain drew his sidearm. We're not dying here. Move. The crew sprinted toward the pyramid, the corrupted guardians closing in behind them. The black craft above began to descend, its hum growing deafening. The race to the control hub had begun, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The crew of the Eclipse dashed through the ruins, their boots crunching against the cracked and ancient pavement. The corrupted guardians pursued them, their mechanical limbs whirring and clicking as they closed the distance. The captain led the way, his sidearm drawn and ready, though he knew it would do little against the advanced machines. How much farther? The engineer shouted, glancing over his shoulder at the approaching figures. The control hub is inside the pyramid, the science officer replied, clutching the crystal tightly. We're almost there. The pyramid loomed ahead, its massive entrance now illuminated by the pulsing glow of the black craft above. The crew could feel the vibrations of its hum in their chests, a constant reminder of the danger closing in. As they reached the entrance, the captain turned and fired a few shots at the corrupted guardians, slowing them just enough to buy time. Inside. Now, he ordered. The crew rushed into the pyramid, the heavy stone doors groaning as they slid shut behind them. The interior was dimly lit, the walls lined with the same glowing symbols they had seen before. The air was thick with the scent of dust and ancient machinery. Where's the control hub? The engineer asked, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. The science officer held up the crystal, its glow intensifying as they moved deeper into the pyramid. It's responding to something. This way. They followed her through a series of narrow corridors, the crystal's light guiding their path. Behind them, the sound of the corrupted guardians pounding on the doors grew louder. The crew knew it was only a matter of time before the machines broke through. Finally, they reached a large chamber at the heart of the pyramid. In the center of the room stood a massive console, its surface covered in the same alien symbols. The science officer approached it, her hands trembling as she placed the crystal into a slot on the console. "This is it," she said. "The control hub." The moment the crystal was inserted, the room came alive. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter, and the console hummed with power. A holographic interface appeared above it, displaying a map of the galaxy with several points highlighted. "What does it do?" the captain asked, his eyes scanning the map. "It activates the ancient defenses," the science officer explained. "Weapons, shields, everything the civilization left behind to protect themselves. But there's a problem." "What kind of problem?" the engineer demanded. "The system is damaged. It needs to be repaired before it can be fully activated. And we don't have much time." As if on cue, the sound of the pyramid's doors being torn open echoed through the chamber. The corrupted guardians were inside. The captain turned to the engineer. "Can you fix it?" The engineer studied the console, his eyes narrowing. "I can try. But I'll need a few minutes." "You've got two," the captain said, drawing his sidearm. "Science officer, stay with him. Pilot, you're with me. We'll hold them off." The pilot nodded, gripping his weapon tightly. Together, he and the captain moved to the entrance of the chamber, just as the first of the corrupted guardians appeared in the corridor. Their glowing eyes locked onto the crew, and they charged. The captain fired, his shot striking the lead guardian but doing little to slow it down. The pilot joined in, their combined fire forcing the machines to pause, but not stop. "We can't hold them forever," the pilot shouted. "We don't need forever," the captain replied. "Just long enough." Behind them, the engineer worked furiously, his hands flying across the console. The science officer assisted, decoding the alien symbols and guiding his repairs. Almost there, the engineer yelled. The corrupted guardians pressed forward, their mechanical limbs screeching against the stone floor. The captain and pilot were forced to retreat, their ammunition running low. "Now would be a good time," the captain shouted. "Done," the engineer replied, slamming his hand on the console. The room erupted with light as the ancient defenses came online. The corrupted guardians froze, their glowing eyes flickering before going dark. Outside the pyramid, the black craft's hum faltered, and it began to retreat. The crew stood in stunned silence, the weight of what they had just accomplished sinking in. "We did it," the science officer whispered. But the captain's eyes were still fixed on the holographic map. "This is just the beginning. We've activated their defenses, but the war isn't over." The pyramid's chamber was bathed in a steady, calming light as the ancient defense systems hummed to life. The corrupted guardians lay motionless, their twisted forms scattered across the floor like broken toys. The crew of the Eclipse took a moment to catch their breath, their hearts still racing from the close call. The captain stepped forward, studying the holographic map that now dominated the room. The highlighted points across the galaxy glowed brightly, each one representing a weapon, a shield, or some other remnant of the ancient civilization's might. "This changes everything," the science officer said, her voice filled with awe. "With these defenses, we can protect not just ourselves, but anyone who's vulnerable. This is what they wanted us to find, their final gift to the galaxy." The engineer wiped sweat from his brow, his hands still trembling from the adrenaline. "Yeah, but we've only activated one hub. If we want to make a real difference, we'll need to get the others online too. And that black craft out there? It's not going to let us do that without a fight." The captain nodded, his expression grim. "We've bought ourselves some time, but you're right. This is far from over. We need to get back to the Eclipse and figure out our next move." The Eclipse docked with the derelict ship, its airlock hissing as it sealed into place. The crew stood ready, weapons in hand, as the captain led the way onto the alien vessel. The interior was dark, the only light coming from the flickering remains of its power systems. The air was cold and stale, carrying the faint scent of decay. "Stay close," the captain whispered, his voice barely audible over the creaking of the ship's hull. They moved cautiously through the narrow corridors, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The science officer scanned the surroundings with a handheld device, her brow furrowed in concentration. "The life signs are coming from up ahead. But they're weak, whoever's here might not have much time." As they reached the ship's control room, they found the source of the life signs. A single alien lay slumped against the wall, its breathing shallow and labored. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a slender, insect-like creature with iridescent skin and multiple limbs. Its eyes, large and glassy, flickered open as they approached. Don't hurt me," it rasped, its voice a strange blend of clicks and whispers. The captain lowered his weapon, though he remained cautious. "We're not here to hurt you. We're here to help." "What happened?" The alien's gaze shifted to the crystal the science officer carried, its eyes widening in recognition. You have it. The key. They'll come for you. They always come." "Who will come?" the science officer asked gently. "The Void Weavers," the alien replied, its voice trembling. "They destroyed my people. They destroy everything. I tried to warn others, but I was too late." The captain exchanged a glance with his crew. "We've seen what they can do. But we're fighting back. We've activated some of the ancient defenses. If we can get the rest online, we might be able to stop them." The alien's eyes flickered with something like hope. "There is a network. The defenses are connected. If you can activate the central hub, you can turn them all on at once. But the hub is heavily guarded. The Void Weavers know its importance." "Where is it?" the captain asked. The alien lifted a trembling limb, pointing to a star on the holographic map the science officer had pulled up. "There. But you must hurry. They are already moving to stop you." The captain nodded. "We'll get you to our ship. You'll be safe there." As they helped the alien to its feet, the ship suddenly shuddered violently. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered before going out entirely. "What's happening?" the engineer shouted. The science officer checked her device, her face pale. "The Void Weavers, they're here. That black craft just warped into the system." The captain cursed under his breath. "We need to move. Now." They hurried back to the Eclipse, the alien leaning heavily on the engineer for support. As they reached the airlock, the derelict ship shook again, the sound of tearing metal echoing through the corridors. "They're breaking it apart," the pilot yelled. Go, the captain urged, shoving everyone through the airlock. The Eclipse detached just as the black craft's tendrils wrapped around the derelict ship, crushing it like paper. The crew watched in horror as the alien vessel was torn apart, its remains drifting into the void. "We need to get out of here," the captain said, his voice tight. "Pilot, set a course for the central hub. We don't have a choice anymore, it's our only shot." The crew nodded, their faces set with determination. There was no time for hesitation. The Eclipse docked with the station, its airlock sealing into place with a hiss. As they stepped onto the station, the crew felt the weight of the ancient civilization's legacy pressing down on them. This was their final stand. The science officer and the engineer moved quickly, following the alien's directions to the control room. The station was eerily silent, its corridors lit by the faint glow of dormant systems. The crystal pulsed in the science officer's hands, its light growing brighter as they approached their destination. Meanwhile, the captain and the pilot prepared for the inevitable. They set up defensive positions near the docking bay, using whatever equipment they could find to fortify their position. The black craft had already begun its assault, its tendrils lashing out at the station's hull. "They're coming," the pilot said, his voice calm but tense. The captain nodded, gripping his weapon tightly. "Then we'll make sure they regret it." The first wave of corrupted guardians emerged from the black craft, their twisted forms clambering onto the station. The captain and the pilot opened fire, their shots striking true but doing little to slow the machine's advance. The battle was fierce, the air filled with the sound of gunfire and the screech of metal on metal. Inside the control room, the science officer and the engineer worked feverishly to activate the hub. The crystal glowed brightly as it connected to the system, the ancient symbols on the walls lighting up one by one. "It's working," the science officer exclaimed. "The defenses are coming online." But as the system activated, the station began to shake violently. The Void Weavers had intensified their assault, their black craft tearing into the station's hull. "We're running out of time," the engineer shouted. Outside, the captain and the pilot were forced to retreat, their ammunition nearly spent. The corrupted guardians were everywhere, their glowing eyes piercing the darkness. "We can't hold them much longer," the pilot yelled. The captain glanced toward the control room. "Just a little longer. We have to give them a little longer." Inside, the science officer made the final adjustments. "Done. The defenses are online." The station erupted with light, its ancient weapons firing at the black craft. The corrupted guardians froze, their systems overwhelmed by the hub's power. The black craft shuddered, its hum faltering as it began to retreat. The crew regrouped, their faces filled with relief and exhaustion. They had done it. The Void Weavers had been driven back, and the galaxy's defenses were active once more. As they boarded the Eclipse and left the station behind, the captain looked out at the stars. "This is just the beginning," he said. "The Void Weavers will return. But now, we're ready." The crew nodded, their resolve unshaken.